Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really excited to have two very special guests on. So we have Jacob Samson and Payton Martin, and they are co-chairs of DIFFA Dallas's annual House of DIFFA event. And I've often been asked many times over the years that because I do go to so many events, what is one event that should be on your radar to attend? And I would say House of DIFFA is definitely one of those events. It is really such a magical experience to be in. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into what makes DIFFA, House of DIFFA and DIFFA Dallas so special. So with that, Jacob, Payton, welcome. And I'm so excited to have you both on as guests today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So Payton, I'd love for you to start. Tell us what the mission of DIFFA is.
Yeah, so the mission for DIFFA Dallas is that we provide the critical financial support to the North Texas aid service organizations that they are doing the direct care services in our community. So they're providing direct care to adults, families, children, really anybody who's impacted by HIV and AIDS. So that could be somebody who is living with HIV and AIDS or a family member who's impacted by it. But all of our donations, they go to basically providing education, direct care, prevention, and advocacy, and all of the sort of things that kind of affect those people that are affected by HIV and AIDS. So, food scarcity, homelessness, really, it goes, the reach is far and wide. And so, yeah, that's where it goes.
That's fantastic. And the work you all really do is really incredible in the amount of organizations that you impact throughout the North Texas community, and with House of DIFFA have fun doing it. So, DIFFA is one of those organizations that, people really want to be a part of. And I want to hear how each of you initially got involved with DIFFA. So Jacob, I'd like to start with you, and then Payton, I'd love for you to share your story after Payton or after Jacob goes.
Sure thing. And actually, our story of involvement is basically the exact same.
Yeah.
We were asked by a friend who at the time was on the board. We were not. If we wanted to co-chair the silent auction for House of DIFFA, I guess it was 3 years ago now. And so we're like, sure, just needed some extra hands on the ground to getting that organized, getting donations, et cetera. And so we both were there. We were meeting weekly with their committee, sourcing items, getting silent auction donations, and then actually there for setup. It was also both of our first year to attend the gala. And so it was really interesting and cool to be kind of a part of the installation of it, and really understanding and knowing what it is that DIFFA does prior to attending. It just made the event that much more impactful. And so then you fast forward, that season ended, and shortly after, we both received a call from the board, that someone had nominated us. And I truly think it just our really getting our hands dirty, rolling our sleeves up, made an impact with the organization and the board at the time. And they were like, these are the kind of people we want to be a part of this, because we are a working board. And so that was, of course, important to them. I own an event company in Dallas. And so I think there was some benefit having someone like that on the board as well, considering, our fundraising is based solely on 3 really large events that we produce each year.
I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that you two started as silent auction chairs, because we talk about this on this program, that people will ask, who should I look for to be an event leader? And I say, if you can find an effective silent auction chair, because that is really doing the hardest. I think that is the hardest job of any fundraiser on all the committees I've served on. It is by far and away the hardest. So Jacob, I know you wanted to chime in, but I wanted to share that bit before you did.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I have to say it's the most difficult thing. And I don't always understand why, but it just is, right? And I would say jumping in feet first to that, right? And it was like, okay, we started with the hardest part, and fast forward to today, and we're like, we understand the silent auction is the hardest part. So it's really important that we communicate to the current silent auction chair, like, we're here for you. We know this is difficult. reach out to everyone. We're like, this is an all hands on deck part of the event for sure. It's no job for one person ever.
Payton, from a nephew to uncle perspective, then this is actually an even more interesting question. How, talk about doing an event with with a relative.
So it's funny, actually, Jacob was asked to co-chair the silent auction, and I had recently moved to Dallas, and he asked me if I wanted to help with it. And I'm kind of like the tech nerd on the back end of things. So I'm like, oh, we can do this to make this faster, or we can put this together, and like this will save us 20 hours of time. So I was just asked to kind of help on the back end and do all of the kind of labor intensive computer stuff and that type of stuff. And really, I mean, it was fun. We kind of, the three of us in the committee, we had a lot of fun doing it, honestly. And we were there setting up for days on end, and it was just jokes and fun. So I mean, for us, this is the kind of thing we like doing, right? So we're both in the events industry, and we do this on a daily basis. So if we didn't like doing it, we wouldn't be doing it. So really, it's fun for me. So yeah.
That's incredible. And I want to ask one follow-up question to you, Payton. So talk about, because you said you're newer to Dallas, how important is it to get involved with an organization in terms of really building a community and a network for yourself?
Honestly, I would say I mean, it's really high up there because I mean, I moved to Dallas, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and most of the people who are in my circle now are people that I met through DIFFA, right? So, I mean, we've met so many people through DIFFA. I'd say honestly, 60 to 70% of my network is people that I've met through DIFFA. And I mean, DIFFA has opened up so many doors for not only me, Jacob, everyone who's been involved with DIFFA. So I'd say it's incredibly important, no matter where you are, to get involved with an organization and do something that you not only enjoy doing, but that's making a difference and, affects you and the people around you.
So that's a perfect segue into the next question. And Jacob, I'd like for you to start with this. So talk about, what made you say yes, and what makes you passionate about supporting people who are living with and/or are impacted by HIV and AIDS?
Sure. It's really a great question because I'm someone who's truly just very passionate about helping the nonprofit community and in all of them, really. There's none that we really don't support here, both at my company and myself personally. With DIFFA, it took me a minute, right? Because it's something that I am, as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, I didn't experience the HIV and AIDS crisis as a lot of my older friends did, back in the 80s, when it was like, your friends were quite literally dying around you. And so when that was happening, you have a different sort of drive and power, behind you to help and make a difference. For me, it was different because while I don't have that, just being in, it took about a year, being heavily involved with DIFFA and actually seeing our ASOs and really understanding everything that DIFFA does for this community to realize what I was passionate about in it. And mine quickly became the youth, right? And the children that are today being affected by this disease. I mean, it's crazy, right? Because you've got children who are trying to come out as gay to their families, right? Getting kicked out of their homes, and now you're gay, you're homeless, you have nowhere to go. I mean, and that just spirals. It's like a snowball effect, right? And then a lot of times those are the members of our community who are currently becoming infected with this. And so it's really behind the psychology and of helping children come out to their families, right? Or if they come out and their families kick them out of their houses, getting them a place to live and a place to go. I tell this story, constantly about a young man who was a senior in college at UNT, and he had one semester left of school, decided to come out to his family. And when he did, they kicked him out. And so he went to his school counselor and, said, this is what happened. They called one of our ASOs who provides emergency housing to youth ages 18 to 24, which is an age group that we sometimes forget about. Like that's still considered youth. And it's honestly sometimes youth it's a critical stage of life, right? You're in college, you're about to graduate and be on your own, and maybe you don't need your parents anymore because now you can get, you've got your career and you can support yourself. But this guy had a semester left of school, so they called the ASO to get him a place, and the executive director of the organization said, we've got about a 2-week wait list currently. And so they're like, totally fine, we understand. Those 2 weeks go by. In fact, he was a little just shy of 2 weeks. He calls the school. We've got a bed. We're ready, And the counselor said, well, unfortunately, the child has taken his life. And this ASO can provide housing for one night for 3 youth that are homeless for $65 a night. So $65 provides a bed for 3 kids a night. And so you do the math, 65 times the 12 days between that waiting list and the point in which the young man took his life, it's pennies, right? To most people.
Yeah.
Like the money that DIFFA raises really does move the needle in a big way. Like we're able to do so much with $65, right? Whereas sometimes with other fundraisers that I attend, it's like, I mean, cancer, it's a huge problem, right? And it raises tons of money, but it takes tons of money to move the needle with cancer. And so that's why I always encourage people to really like dive into what's happening locally and where you live, because you can really make a bigger difference for something that you might be able to afford, right? Like I can't afford to write a check to the American Cancer Society for $1 million, which would really make a difference in their world, right? With DIFFA, such a smaller amount makes such a bigger impact. And to me, I think I kind of got off key here, but whatever. What makes me so passionate about it is definitely that part, right? It's pennies truly that make such a big difference. And that's an easier ask, right?
Absolutely. And I got to say, that was one of the most impactful, passionate stories I've ever heard. So that was not a tangent at all. I mean, it was an important story to hear and be told, and that small and large contributions both make a difference with DIFFA. And I think that's why it's such a beloved event in Dallas is you can cut a big check and you can cut a small check and you can still make a difference. And I think that's what makes it such a unique and special, special event. And Payton, I love for you, what made you choose this organization to dive into and say yes to it? And, just build a little bit on what Jacob said as to, as a person who's newer to Dallas, what made you say yes to, I want to support this cause?
Honestly, Rob, we were doing the silent auction, we were setting up, and it got to the day of the event, and they were doing sound checks in the ballroom, and I went in there to set some things on some tables and stuff, and just seeing the sheer production value of the event, I was like, this is so cool. And honestly, I think that was the hook right there. But the reason why I continue to support DIFFA is because, kind of like Jacob said, us being younger, we don't have friends who, were directly impacted by the disease in the way that maybe some people were in the past. But for me, it's about the awareness that all the things that are surrounding people that are affected by HIV and AIDS. And it's so many people that don't really know what DIFFA does. They think we're just a gay organization or we just give to HIV and AIDS. And we do so much more than that. And for me, the stories that I love telling are, when I'm telling people about DIFFA and they don't know what it is, or they're new, or this or that. I love talking about like all the things that DIFFA does that nobody knows about, right? So like what Jacob said, or, one of the things that we do is like some of these people, they don't have health insurance, they don't have an apartment, they don't have this, they don't have that, but they can't go get those things without a driver's license, without a birth certificate, without a way to get there. And so DIFFA provides money for them to get those documents. Some of our ASOs, they'll house those documents for people, or they'll arrange for them to get an Uber to where they need to go. And so for me, I mean, I told you about the hook, but the reason why I stay involved and why I love doing it is really just because I think there's such a misconception about not only what DIFFA does, what a lot of organizations do, but letting people know what we really do and what the impact they can make is it's every time you tell the story to someone, they're so shocked. And for me, that's fun for me.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up that, it's so much more than just quote unquote, a gay organization, because the one thing that I think DIFFA that I've noticed in just going to events around the state that are LGBTQ focused is DIFFA really does an amazing job of dialing in allies into the event. And it really is it is a tapestry. In the event, you can feel that it is a Dallas community event that may be LGBTQ focused, but there are a lot of allies that also come in to do it. And I think that really is part of the secret sauce as to what has made DIFFA so successful over the years
For sure.
in
Yeah,
doing
and
that.
DIFFA started as a, as a grassroots organization with started by a lot of people who, didn't have HIV or weren't living with it, but their friends were dying and their friends were suffering from this disease. And so, DIFFA over the years, I mean, honestly, a lot of our board members are not gay. A lot of the people who are involved are not. So exactly.
It's absolutely true, and that's part of what makes it special. And the other thing is that your signature events are also off the hook fun. So I want to
Yeah.
start a little bit because I know that you all, and Dallas does this probably better than any other city in the United States, in my opinion, in terms of hosting kickoff events. And the DIFFA kickoff event for, House of DIFFA is an event each year called Burgers and Burgundy, and it announces the actual, the theme of each year, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But what is the secret to hosting a great kickoff event? Because you host this kickoff event in October for an event that's in late April or early May each year. How do you do that and keep the guests excited for an event that's going to happen 5 or 6 months down the line? I love Jacob to start with that.
Yeah, so it's similar to, kind of getting involved with anything, right? Like you gotta hook them early. And then it's a journey of reeling the fish in. And it's a financial commitment. It's not inexpensive to attend, right? And so you've got to gain people's buy-in relatively early to get them to make the investment. And so Burgers and Burgundy allows us to do just that. We get to hook them with fabulous burgers made by all these celebrity chefs and paired with wine and great entertainment and shopping experiences and just a truly fun cocktail party at the Village. It was at the Village this year and last year, which is a great setting. But and so then we use it as a way to, the theme gets announced. Our style council ambassadors are announced, which are a lot of those influential allies, right, in the community. And so you kind of get everyone's attention there. There's a build up because you've got to go to experience the theme reveal. And then just from there, like we use all of our other events to sort of just keep you on the line. And then when it's time for House of Diffa, you're like, the build up was so great that like now the pressure's really on for us because now we've really got to impress, which is why House of Diffa is the event that it is, right? Because we've kind of strung these folks along for so long that it would be upsetting to not then impress them. And so I would say really the secret to it is just that, like getting people engaged early. And we do that by just the buildup of the theme reveal, truly, and the announcement of our style council ambassadors.
Well, let's talk a little bit about theme because the thing that makes DIFFA so special to me are the themes each year and how fun, how avant-garde they can be, how different they are from year to year. So, I mean, everyone's always guessing. So, Payton, I'd love to start with you, and then Jacob, feel free to chime in. But talk a little bit about the process of, selecting a theme for House of Diffa, and share a little bit more about this year's theme as well.
Yeah. Well, the process. Jacob said it best actually at our Burgers and Burgundy event in October. The DIFFA crowd is a hard crowd to please. So coming up with a theme is not an easy feat. It is not an easy feat. So, I mean, this year, I'll tell you how this year it was really a group effort between Jacob, myself, and Robin, with Robin Chauvin Productions, who's our producer. She produced the show last year and she's returning this year. And it was really just a long and drawn out we worked on it for 3 to 4 months, building up to Burgers and Burgundy. But it's really what I did is I went back in the DIFFA archives and looked at all of the themes that we've had since the event started. This is our 33rd annual, so up 32 times ago, and just kind of looked at what we did along the way. If there was anything that we could pull from, anything that we didn't want to repeat, obviously, anything that was super recent. But yeah, I mean, just the process, it's hard. It's truly hard finding a theme, because the theme has to be not only something that first of all, people have to know what they're going to wear, right? We have to be able to create a show from it, right? So we have to create something that's visually stimulating for the crowd. And then number 3, we want to make sure that we can tie it back to our mission. So it's not an easy feat. I mean, you have anything to add there?
I mean, I was just to piggyback on what Payton said. For me, I don't know if you know, Rob, but I chaired House of Diffa last year as well. And
Yes.
so I thought last year we came up with the most brilliant theme and it couldn't be topped. And that was it. And I was like signing off. I'll never have to do it again. So great. And then here we are this year. And I was like, geez, here, I got to come up with another one. And honestly, tying it back to the cause, super important. And to all the former event chairs, co-chairs, current or former out there, like the theme, while it's a word generally, right? Usually it's one word or two. People look at it and think, well, that can't be hard just to throw a word out there. And it is, because not only does it have to tie to your cause, it's got to allow you to build a multi-segmented show with fashion that ties that, the fashion has to look like the theme. Then you've got 4 segments of fashion. So you've got to have like 4 sub-segments of your theme. And the entertainment has to tie into that, the decor. And then for me, honestly, as a white man, like who is constantly learning about being diverse and inclusive, and that's very important to me. It's very important to DIFFA, and I think it's important to most people. And having a theme that is all of those things too is critical, right? And you walk a fine line constantly, making sure you're not going to offend anyone and that you're going to include everyone. And I'll say I have to just share the story with our theme last year. That was a big concern of mine. It's just, I'm very sensitive to it. And I always want to make sure that everyone in the crowd feels heard and feels seen and addressed, because I think that's important. And I was at another event about not even a month after House of Diffa last year. And this very tall, large Black man walks up to me and he just says, I have to tell you, that event, I have never been to an event in Dallas that made me feel more seen. And tears start rolling down his face. And I have chills now. I get chills every time I tell this story, because me, as a white American man, that was just the biggest compliment I think I could have ever received, and that we could have received, right, to DIFFA for that, because a lot of people don't feel that way when they attend events like these. And that's important, because at the end of the day, we're asking for your money, and we're asking you to get behind this cause that we're so passionate about. And I want our patrons to know that I'm passionate about the cause, but I'm passionate about our supporters and patrons as well, because I think that's really important.
Absolutely. So can you divulge a little bit about the theme that you came up with? I hear it's really dreamy. And we'll go from there. So either one of you feel free to kick off what the theme is.
Yeah, so this year's theme is Dream State. So it's, it aligns perfectly with our mission. And the whole idea behind it is that the dream state is this world, it symbolizes this world where imagination fuels the fight for change, right? So, from the beginning of DIFFA to now, like the imagination of the people who have been involved with the board and the event chairs and that have driven DIFFA's mission forward for the last 4 decades. And so the dream state's all about finding a place where hope and vision can transform those barriers into possibilities, right? So we really want to create like an immersive experience that goes beyond the entertainment, right? So that we basically, we're in a dream state, right? We want to, how can we get to this dream world where people who are affected by HIV and AIDS, that's not a thing anymore, right? And so that's kind of where the inspiration came from. Plus, we thought, we could definitely create some cool visuals and stuff with that. But yeah, that's kind of the idea behind it.
And also, I think what I've said is like I have this dream, right? And I dream about it of what everyone in that room that night is collectively achieving for DIFFA Dallas, right? And the euphoria you feel from accomplishing something like what we do is truly something that most people, you only feel in your dreams. And I just because I did this last year, I'm excited to talk about this year, is that it's such an honor to stand on that stage in front of all of those patrons and feel that euphoria that typically is something you only feel in a dream, right? Of just what all the good everyone in the room is doing for DIFFA Dallas. That's truly what's so special about it. Being on from a chairman level, I would say.
Absolutely. And dream, to me, that's because I've never been able to articulate, because the first one I went to, I think, was like in 2011. It really kind of was dreamy and, fantastical walking in. Part of that is it's legendary, is all I can say. The jacket auction. And you get to see what I love about that more, and DIFFA does it better than any other event I've been to. You literally get to see the history of the event through the jacket, because what happens at this is people who win a jacket in a previous year will wear it in a future year. And it's just, it creates this really just amazing visual that, you'll be like, I saw that 10 years ago and really admired it. And I saw it on a person there. So talk, and the thing is that you all collaborate with that auction with local designers, regional designers, national designers, global designers. So, I mean, it's really a tapestry of fashion, really almost like a tree sapling that, becomes a giant oak. Talk a little bit about the secret to collaborating with that range of creative artists to create an auction that's cohesive.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to back up a little bit. So just so everybody knows, the House of Diffa actually started as just a jacket auction, right? So it used to be called the Dallas Collection, and then it was the Diffa Dallas Collection. But House of Diffa started as the jacket auction. So that is really the start of this event and the reason why we're here today. But, I would say honestly, I mean, we, like you said, we collaborate with artists from all around the country, the world. It's different from year to year. But most of the contributions come through, the circle of people that surround DIFFA. So the board of trustees, style council, ambassadors, patrons. It's kind of like the, somebody who knows somebody dynamic, right? So, you might know somebody who knows somebody who works on the wardrobe of X celebrity, and they might do something for us. So it really comes through, patrons, past patrons, and yeah, that's kind of how we get them. We've had some really great designers in the past, like Elton John has created a jacket before. We've had some other celebrities. There's so many, I don't know, but I would say really it's comes through the DIFFA network is how we get those connections. And DIFFA has chapters in multiple cities and multiple states, so we do get a lot from our headquarters in New York. So yeah.
No, fantastic. And you had mentioned the Style Council. Jacob, could you elaborate on a little bit on what that is? Because I think that is what helps make DIFFA such a good tapestry of an event that pulls multiple layers of the community. So please elaborate on what that is.
Yeah, so our Style Council ambassadors are kind of the movers and shakers in our community, and they're nominated by the board every year. It ranges between like 15 to 20 a year we get on. And really what their I guess job is, right, is to spread awareness about what DIFFA Dallas does. And it's a way to get our message out to groups of people that may not get it otherwise, right? And so it's kind of how we tap into those quote unquote allies in our community, really. And they have certain fundraising goals each year. And when they meet their goal, they do get to walk the runway at House of Diffa, which is super fun for them. So we really prop them up and, get as much publicity out there about them and showcase them at all of our events and make them feel super special, because really they are doing really important work for us and from a fundraising standpoint, for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought, we've alluded to it quite a bit about fashion. And if there is one fashion show that you should go to in your life that you really want to be dazzled and wowed by, it is a DIFFA fashion show. They are truly one of the best produced things I've ever seen. They're fun, they're elaborate, they're avant-garde, but there's classic fashion mixed in. It really is just this wonderful tapestry. So talk a little bit about, and I definitely want to hear this because you both have an events background. How does the team produce a show that is both creatively inspiring and at the same time honors the theme?
That's an interesting question, actually. It's because it's so many people that come together to do this, right? And honestly, it's like doing, chairing last year for the first time. I remember walking backstage and seeing this army of creatives working on this show, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I had no idea it was this many people. I mean, we're talking, there's hundreds of backstage folks working on this in the days leading up to and the day of and months leading up to, really. And I would say we work really closely with our show producer, Robin, and she then, through her connections and people that she knows in the industry, because she does this for a living, gets the stylists and the makeup artists and the hair artists and all of those things, right? And the fashions and the designers making the those avant-garde pieces you mentioned. And I just had to say, I mean, it truly is a really big collaboration. There's no one or two or three people behind that part of what DIFFA does for sure. It's a big operation back there.
So, and the big operation, and since you chaired this year, I'm just going to ask, roughly how many looks were there last year?
Last year, I believe we had 70, around between 70 and 80 looks, if I'm not mistaken. So it's quite a bit. And you've got entertainment that's dazzled in between. I mean, I kind of describe the fashion segment of the show as, think Victoria's Secret fashion show, right? Where there's fashion and then an entertainer and then more fashion and entertainment. So there's lots of highs and lows, and you're constantly keeping the crowd engaged and excited. So just creating, and I think that's like a true key to making something memorable, and what keeps people coming back. It's because they remember those highs and lows and being fully immersed in a room of entertainment and fashion and all the things.
So, Payton, I'd love your take, from your experience having an events background, your take on what about the fashion show and kind of putting it together and just making sure that it's a creatively successful thing when you're balancing super creative people with we've got to make this cohesive and organized and get it down the runway in a way that's coherent and makes sense.
Yeah, so for me, I'm kind of like the branding nerd, right? So I'm all about the look of, the graphics and the visuals and stuff like that. So I mean, and to Jacob's point, it's not just fashion. So there's a composer who does all the music for the show. There's choreography, all the different entertainment. This year, we're working with a really talented team on visuals. They did our theme reveal video, and they're going to do all of the kind of immersive video that's there in the room. So it's really about like creating this journey from the moment the patron walks into the Sheraton till the moment they leave, right? So you don't want to just walk into a boring pre-function area where you have cocktails and bid on items, and then you go into this ballroom with ugly carpet and watch people walk down a runway. Like it's so much more than that. Like I think, like Jacob said, just there's so much that goes into it and so many different people working on it that, I mean, it's segment by segment, just creating a really dynamic experience that's both visually and auditorially pleasing, and just all around, like you feel, from the moment you got there to the moment you left, like you were a part of this experience, right? It's not just this presentation. You go to other nonprofit events and you sit at a table and listen to speakers talk for hours, and it's boring, right? This is all about creating something that people want to attend and have fun doing, and you're doing good while you're doing it.
All absolutely true. And what I appreciated most about your answer, Payton, was you connecting the dots between the visual imagery, the branding, the music, and how all of it really creates this thing where you really feel like you're definitely not in a ballroom. Like when I'm at a DIFFA event in the ballroom, it does not feel like one. And that is and you both know this from an events background, that's a very difficult thing to do. And the fact that you all do it every year is just amazing.
Very difficult to do when you're doing it for a nonprofit too, and you've got to watch what you're spending.
I would say it's difficult on a budget.
Yeah,
sure. You got to get really
we can do it, but to do it on a nonprofit, that's the difficult feat.
Absolutely. It is. And you always pull it off flawlessly. So, talk a little bit about, because I think a lot of that, when you were talking about the fashion show and you were talking about the auction, it's real easy to see why there's such a devoted following for this event. So, what do you think is the main reason, if you had to say, what is the one thing that has made DIFFA this must-attend event that people go to year after year after year after year?
I would have to say, honestly, yes, it's the fun and the entertainment of the events and people having a great time. But it all kind of boils down to the heart in our patrons, right? Like we have kind of our patrons are really a cult following. I mean, it's a really tight group of people, it's a great problem to have. It's a bad problem to have just because we want to bring in others, right? And just continue to expand beyond just our circle. I think sometimes organizations can get a bad rap when they feel exclusive or not in, and we welcome everyone, every type of person. There's a place for you at DIFFA and a way for you to get involved for sure. And I think again that just kind of ties back to the heart that it's people really put into it, that both our board puts into it, our patrons, when you're there and we're telling real stories of the people that we are impacting. Last year we brought one out on stage and really let her tell her story and show the path of success and how her life has changed because of what those people in the room have done. And I think that's really important to maintaining your patron base and keeping people returning year after year is I want to go and I want to give money and I want to see how my money helped and what it did, right? I think that's a really important element that we've started to make sure we include, especially at the House of DIFFA Gala when you've got your largest audience for sure.
Yeah, I'd say definitely the hook is definitely the production value, right? So you go to your first House of Diffa and you see this shocking show, but once you get involved, you really find out like the people, like Jacob said, and like we say all the time, the Diffa Dallas board is a working board, and almost everybody who's involved with Diffa Dallas has a personal story, and they're not just doing it to get up on a stage or have their name on a piece of paper or do what they do. Like it's a true grassroots organization, and everybody who's involved has a personal reason why. And that's what makes it so special.
Absolutely. And I'm going to piggyback on something Payton said. I would use the word dazzling to describe that fashion show. I don't want anyone to be scared by the word shocking. It is dazzling and you will just be immersed. And it really is just one of a kind. And I know that we're coming up on time here, and I always like to ask this at the end of a segment, and I'm really interested in your responses, given your events background. And we'll start with Payton and we'll end with Jacob. And that is, what is one thing all successful events have in common?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say also one thing that all successful events have in common is that is a good question.
I mean, for me, honestly, there are like the metrics, right? The obvious things. A successful event is obviously achieving your fundraising goal, selling all your tables, having a bomb, silent, and live auction, your funded grant, raising all the money it wants to know. But I think truly the way you get to all of those things, and it kind of goes back to what I said before, is making sure you've got the right people in the room. And you've got to have people who are there not because they have to be, but because they want to be, and not because they just want to be to have a good time, but because they want to make a difference in their community and in the lives of the people who are impacted by HIV and AIDS and beyond, right? And whatever your group is fundraising for. It goes back to making sure you've got people in the crowd who have that heart, and they're not losing sight of their heart and how they truly feel about it. You've really kind of got to, it takes getting yourself into a mindset of like, I'm here to do good. And I'm an emotional person regardless. And any event I'm at, I truly sit there and I try to put myself in those folks' shoes, right? And try to, as best I can, imagine what my life would be like if I were in their shoes. And I think that's what drives people to give more and become passionate and to become return, right? To come back year over year and do it again and again. I think that's, again, just the people, right? You got to make sure you've got the right ones out there and people who truly care and are in it for the right reason.
It's so right. I was sitting there trying to rack my brain about it. And I was trying to think because, we really don't know if the event is going to be successful until right before the event, right? I mean, the most pressure across the organization, the most pressure is definitely on the House of Diffa chairs because we're, responsible for making sure that this event embraces all this money so we can grant it out to our AIDS service organization. So I think that's absolutely right. Having the right people involved and working on the right things, definitely is what makes it successful for sure.
I think that the answers both of you gave it were picture perfect. I especially love the part, Jacob, you brought up about people wanting to be there, because that is, you only want one thing that's contagious in life, and that is the energy around you. And when you can sense when people want to be in a room. And I think that's one of the main ingredients for DIFFA success is everyone who's there wants to be there. No one's phoning in going to DIFFA.
Yeah.
When you walk in, you want to be there, and it's this contagious thing that really just, it envelops the room, and it envelops the room with love. And, we talk on this show a lot about the 3 essential ingredients of success for an event. It's wow, fun, and heart. And I'm glad that you brought it, because DIFFA is such a wow event that, Jacob, I really appreciated you bringing the heart into it a little bit so that people really see just the wonderful tapestry that is the event and why Dallas is such a fun city. And, this has been a really, really fun chat with the both of you. So Jacob, Payton, thank you so much. I'm really, really glad that I got to talk to you today.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Great to talk to you too, Rob. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
DIFFA.
Can't wait to be there. And the 2025 House of DIFFA will be held on May 3rd, 2025 at the Sheraton Dallas Hotel in Dallas, Texas. For more information, please visit diffadallas.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.